All right, good morning. This is Dirk Knudsen with the Hillsboro Historical Society. Today is July 13th, 2020, and with me is Will Crandall. Will, look up here at me. There you go. We won't worry about the camera. How are you doing today?
Good.
Will, I brought you here because you're a former businessman in our fine town of Hillsboro and have a lot of history here. And so you're going to be part of our series of oral histories we're doing with folks who've been around long enough to have something to say about our history. So I thought we'd start off by, well, first of all, good morning. We're at Elmer's Pancakes here in lovely downtown Hillsboro, more or less. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Where were you born and what day, and tell us a little bit about your childhood and all that.
I can do that.
Thank you, sir.
I was born in a little town, farm up in Crofton, Nebraska in 1925.
What was the name of the town?
Crofton,
Crofton, okay.
town of probably less than 1,000 people.
Okay.
And we had a 120-acre farm that Dad started the year before I was born.
Wow.
And that's where we lasted until I was 9 years old. And the president came along, and he couldn't grow a crop. What little money he had was shrinking. So I remember sitting at the dining room table with Mom and him and my brothers and sisters. And he said, "Jose, let's get the hell out of here." He says, "Where are you going to go?" And he said, "Well," he was in the Army during World War I. He said, "I've been in New York, I've been south, let's go west." And he had a cousin living in Forest Grove, Oregon, so they sold everything and had $2,500 in their pocket and 4 kids and came to Oregon.
So that was when you were 9. So
9 years old.
1934 roughly.
Yep.
I'm going to pull in a little closer. There we go. All right. So what was that trip like? What do you remember about coming west?
My brothers and sisters were a little younger than I was, and they did a lot of sleeping, but I never slept a bit on the road. It was rather exciting.
You drove out?
We drove out, yeah. One of the deals we ran into was a guy herding thousands of sheep down the road.
Wow.
And it was fun to watch him put his dogs to work to separate those sheep so we could get through. And then they got them all together. And,
Where was that at? Was that in Nebraska? Or?
no, that would have been in probably Wyoming. I don't remember for sure on that.
Wow. So a whole sea of sheep surround you guys. You had to wait to go through them.
Yep.
Did you come out in a car or a truck or a couple trucks?
A car.
One car?
One car.
One car.
Yeah,
and who came out? Your mom and dad?
Mom and Dad and my brothers Howard and Lyle and my sister Alice. And Alice was 3 years old and Lyle was 5 and Howard was 7. And I was 9.
What kind of car did you come out in?
A 29 Chevrolet.
So
2-door.
just packed in there in the back.
They built up where you normally have your legs and your feet. They built that all up the same height so we could bounce around.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Threw some pillows and clothes back there. So did they ship stuff out from as well for like furnishings, or just came out in the car?
The only thing they shipped out was Mom's sewing machine because of a neighbor that was moving out here and he bought a rail car.
Wow.
And they took that, but everything else we bought after we came out here.
Wow. So really, shirts on your backs, not much money in hand.
Money and, no. Dad went to work for 20 and 25 cents an hour on farms to try to feed us.
When you got here, did you end up in Forest Grove?
Yes, we did for 1 year.
On a farm?
No, in town.
In town.
And then we spent 1 year there, and then the next year we moved to Cornelius on a farm at Gilbert's, and we bought a couple of cows, and the neighbors do the farming for him, and just raised gardens. And we had a grocery store across the street, a small one.
Yeah.
And we raised a lot of garden plants and sold them over there. Anything they could do to make a buck. We didn't have any money.
Where was that in Cornelius?
Cornelius, where the Shane operation is now, the cabinet shop.
Yeah.
Right across the street from it.
Okay.
That was a dance hall when we were there.
I'll be darned. So you had a little bit of ground right on TV Highway, basically.
Yes, we did. And it went clear back to railroad tracks.
Oh. Big enough piece. Yeah, you can come on in. Just set them over here. They're for me. Thank you. Thanks. Have some Coke there. You can recharge. So That trip must have been long, tiring.
It was rather exciting, really.
I bet it was.
For me, it was.
The Nebraska's wide open country, right? Corn and flat and.
Our first stop out of our hometown, our state, we went to my uncle's house, and he lived in a sod home,
Wow.
and he lived right on the river, and we spent one night there on our way to Oregon.
And then what happened along the way? Did you guys just sleep in the car or
No,
camp?
we
Or?
rented cabins, probably for $5 a night, I imagine.
Yeah.
And they'd have firewood there. You know, take it in, build your own firewood to keep the place warm.
So your dad was a farmer, and so was his dad probably. They farmers.
His dad was a jack of all trades. He was a school teacher. He worked in a creamery.
Wow. And your dad fought in World War I?
My dad fought in World War I in Germany.
What's your dad's name?
John Crandall.
John Crandall. What's your mother's name?
Josie.
John and Josie. How long were they married? Their whole lives?
Well, until Dad died, and he was married when he was about 30, and he died at 70-something. 70.
Anyway, they were life partners.
Yeah.
No break in the marriage.
No.
Wow. Well, it's great. So now you're 9 years old, roughly 9 or 10, living in Cornelius.
Yeah.
What was it? What was going through your mind when you got out here to the Pacific Northwest and you see these trees and the Columbia Gorge and rivers and stuff? Was it just?
It was all so different. It was exciting coming across for me because
I bet it was.
I just had
Especially around 9 years old, you're real curious and adventurous.
Yep. And
Wow.
in the mountains.
Oh my God, that-
Nebraska was all flat.
I bet you when you saw them, did you see the Cascades coming out? Did you guys come through the gorge or
Yep.
did you come?
Yeah, we did.
Okay, so you saw Mount Hood and Adams and all that.
Yeah.
And the gorge itself's a real eye-opener. It's so big.
And we stopped at up on top of the hill there out of the gorge. What the hell's the name of it now?
Vista House?
It's a historical site up there.
Vista House where you can see the view and all that?
Yeah, I can't think what the name of it is.
Yeah, I think it's Vista House.
It's been too long since I.
There's a lookout up there where you
Yeah.
can see out over thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So then take me through, how long were you in Cornelius on that little plot of ground there?
1 year, and then we rented a farm south of Hillsboro,
Okay.
about a mile off the highway.
Out
A small farm.
out 219 toward past Jackson Bottom,
No, towards Beaverton.
more towards Beaverton.
Yeah. And River Road,
River Road.
next to the big dairy beside us, Freidenthal's Dairy, if you remember that.
Oh yeah, Freidenthal's.
And
So Freudenthal, we're going to talk history here, obviously. Did you know the Freudenthal's?
yes, I did. Harmon and
So this would be, we're talking 1934, 5,
35.
6, right in there. Wow. So we're in the Depression. You're in the Depression going on when you came out. So was it Dust Bowl
yes,
situation?
yes, it was.
Okay.
Yep.
So that was horrible, right? Because the farmers back where you were wiped out.
Yep, it was. It was.
Kind of the grapes
You couldn't grow a crop.
Grapes of wrath sort of a thing. Everybody
It was.
put their stuff in a car and head for greener pastures.
Somewhere else. That's
Yeah.
what was happening.
So now, Freudenthals were dairy people. Had a big dairy down in Jackson Bottom, I think. Kind of. It was basically
Yeah, it was
just above the bottom and all along that ridge back there.
Yeah. Yeah.
So their old house is still there.
It is.
I've been back there on Jean Court, and on our history page on Facebook, we've brought them up a number of times because, if I remember the story right, I don't want to get too far off track, but when the Iwasaki family was taken as part of the internment during the war, he went over and basically took over the farm and ran it to perfection as a neighbor. And I didn't think they were friendly, but anyway, when they got back, when they were released and came back, they said their farm was pristine and he had kept it just the way it was and made sure nothing got stolen. And it was quite a story of citizenship at that time for him. Was he German or Swiss?
It was German.
So anyway, people worry about all the racial tensions we have right now, and look at the situation there where everybody was panicked about the Japanese people. The Iwasakis had already been here, but did you ever know them?
I did know them.
Okay.
I picked berries for him one year, and that was enough berry picking for me.
Wow.
The
So
next
that's,
year I went to work for Freudenthal, moving his irrigation pipe.
he had a pretty big dairy, didn't he?
Yes, he did.
Did you milk cows or move pipe? Or?
I moved pipe,
Yeah.
but he had fire in his loft of his barn,
Oh.
and my bedroom was where I could see that something happening over there. Looked out, and that big blaze coming out of that barn in the middle of the night. I woke Dad up. And,
How old were you when you were working there? Still.
Well, that was when I was 12, 13 years old.
Okay. And then you guys had you were renting some land as well? Was
We
it
were
a
renting
small
land
plot, a couple
adjacent
acres?
to
Or?
it, 45 acres.
Oh, really? Do you know who owned that land?
Mr. Henley is who he rented it from. And he had a farm out north of town.
Okay. Yeah, a lot of them had a lot of land back then. They had a piece here and a piece there.
Yeah.
So here you are in Oregon now as a young guy. You're farming, and you're meeting some pretty quality people along the way, right?
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
And so, like a lot of us, even at my age, we picked berries and did that whole thing, right? The farm life, getting up early.
One year of berry picking was enough for me.
It's hard on your
I went
back,
out and
isn't
found
it?
a job.
Hands and knees and in the muck is not a lot of fun, right?
I did. My next job was running that irrigation system.
So I know you were going to school during this time. Tell us where you went to school at. Where did you go to elementary school?
In Hillsboro, I went to.
Was it David Hill?
First went to the junior high. Can't think what name. Pointer. Anyway, and I flunked the first half of the sixth grade, so I had to go back to David Hill to take
gotcha.
it over again. Then I went back and joined my class.
I don't think it was Pointer. It might have been Bosco Barnes or Peter
Barnes
Bosco.
that was a smaller school, but
Yeah.
the junior high was right beside it.
Right beside it. And I think it was the old high school at one time.
So there was B.W. Barnes.
There was B.W. Barnes and there was Peter Bosco, and then they ended, yeah. So we keep playing around with these different ideas where all the schools were, but we just finally decided there was a high school on that site, which became a junior high, which is where you went.
Yes.
So you went to Barnes, you went to B.W. Barnes.
B.W. Barnes.
Did you ever meet B.W. Barnes?
No, I
He
did
was,
not.
he was probably still alive when you came, but he was a giant in Hillsboro educational stuff. I have yearbooks from 1915, 1920, and he's signing all the kids' names and all that. So what was your school experience like? So you struggled a little bit, and then they sent you back. You went back down a grade, I guess.
Well, when I was sent back to do the first half of the sixth grade,
Okay.
the teacher says to me, "Why did they send you back?" And I says, "I don't know why." And he said, "I don't know either." But there was 7 of us in that class that they sent back, and I just happened to be one of them.
Huh.
And I've been at 4 schools. In Nebraska, I went to school. There was 4 of us in my class, and the teacher taught 6 grades. So they spent about 45 minutes with you and move on to the next class and so forth.
Wow.
I don't recall coming home and I talked to Dad about islands or things that you wouldn't learn in that first grade.
Yeah.
But because you sat and listened to all these others, I was picking up a lot of stuff. He couldn't believe all the stuff I was telling him.
Did you ask your dad about the war and everything like that too?
His boy, yeah.
Was he? What did he do in the war?
He was infantry.
So he was in the trenches.
Yep, he was moving with the troops. And,
Wow.
matter of fact, I have a book at home that some wrote the history of it. If you ever want to read it, you'll find it very interesting, and you'll be glad.
Did he
to take
serve
it
in
out.
France or England, or was he?
I think it was it France or Belgium? One of those there.
Yeah. Well, we had those lines that we had drawn, and that was a real tough war. And people nowadays don't even know much about that war, sadly.
One of his guys in his company wrote the book on the history of their time
Really?
there. Very, very interesting.
Yeah, every company, every troop had their own story. Some of them got completely wiped out, and some didn't. So from you're working on the farm, you're going to school. So then your high school experience, you went to what we consider Hillsboro Union High School,
Right,
which became Thomas.
Junior high, yeah.
Yeah, but you went there sort of in its heyday because it was built in '29. You were there in the late 30s.
Let's see, I was graduated in
43?
43, so I was there in 39.
Okay. So it was only 10 years old then. What do you remember about that big old school?
Well, you just moved in, and I rode the school bus to school, you know.
Yeah.
And we didn't get downtown except one night a week to go Saturday night to go shopping. That was
Downtown Hillsboro. So where were you living in high school? Were you still on that piece of ground?
That was the first 2 years.
Okay.
And then they sold the farm.
Okay.
And then when Dad went to work in the shipyards,
Okay.
and I finished my last 2 years in school at the school there.
In Portland?
No, in Hillsboro.
Oh, in Hillsboro.
So we continued. Bought a house. He bought a house for $2,000 on
Wow.
Walnut Street, and it's still there.
Is it really? Walnut, what's the cross street roughly?
Between 6th and 7th.
Oh yeah, okay. That's a nice little section of homes right there.
They're old homes.
Older homes,
So
yeah.
it was four kids and mom and dad.
Yeah.
It was a 3-bedroom house. 3 of us boys were in a bedroom with no closet.
Oh yeah.
And my sister being by herself, she had a nice big
Oh sure
room.
she did. Mom was worried about her.
She was the youngest.
So you were town people at that point.
You know, now we're living in town.
Yeah. Well, of course, now we would say the farm you had out there was in town, but it really wasn't, was it? So.
It was right next to Fur Grove Dairy.
Yeah, I know where it is.
So.
Yeah. Not far
and
from.
Iwasaki on the other side.
Not far from where the big bend and what we now call TV Highway is, coming around Chute Park.
That's right.
So tell me what you talked about going to town on Saturday night to come downtown here in downtown Hillsboro. What were you doing? Were you going to the movies?
Buying groceries.
Buying groceries.
That's right.
And where'd you get groceries?
Piggly
Wiggly?
Wiggly. And
It was downtown, but it moved 2 or 3 times.
it was on the corner of 3rd and Main.
Okay.
That's where they bought their groceries. And of course, we grew our own hogs. We grew our own beef. We had our chickens. And then we got into rabbits and ate them.
Oh wow. Everything you could eat.
Everything.
So even when you moved into town on the house there on along Walnut, you had a big garden and all that, I suppose.
No, we didn't have very much space for that. It was
Oh, it was
small.
tight, huh?
It was pretty tight.
So, what was downtown Hillsboro like when you were a kid? What was it like to walk along Main Street and all that?
Well,
Hopping, busy?
You know, it wasn't very many people in Hillsboro at that
Right.
time. I imagine there was no more than 3,000 people.
Yeah, right. It stayed that way for a long time.
And this town business district was from 10th to 1st Street for the most part.
Okay.
It was a little bit you go west a little bit further in some stores,
Right.
but it was confining.
Most of the businesses were right down here on Main, or were they over on Oak too?
No. Everything is on Main Street.
So not much commercial business except for Main. That was the action. 2nd Street, 3rd Street, looking at the old photos, there was lots of things, candy shops and barbers and all that, banks and everything. Did you ever get to go to the theaters when you were a kid?
Oh yeah, at Christmas time they put on a free movie for us, and so
Okay.
that's when we'd get it.
Was that Mr. Phelps? Remember? Did you ever know Orange Phelps?
Yes, I did.
You must have known Orange Phelps.
Oh, yes, I did.
Not only as a child, but as an adult, probably.
Yeah.
So they were doing that Christmas program where they gave you a little bag with the
Little
candy
bag
and
of
the
candy
peanuts and stuff in it. Yeah, we even got that when I was a kid.
Yeah.
A lot of people remember lining up along Main Street, and Santa would. I think they showed us some cartoons or something, and then they gave you the bag of goodies. And I just remember there being an orange, some peanuts, and some old hard candy in there. And I think he was responsible for that, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was. He was a great guy.
Did you know him later in your life?
I knew him, but I can't really say I really knew the man. I knew
Yeah.
who he was. If I see him
Yeah.
on the street, I knew who he was. But
Okay.
beyond that, no.
Okay. So you graduated high school on time.
I did.
What were you involved with in high school? They had a lot of clubs back then, newspaper, sports. Did you do any of that, or were you too busy?
The first 2 years in school, I was on the farm. You had to get to school and get on the bus and go in the classroom, and at
That's
4
it.
o'clock you'd get on the bus and go home.
Get your
And
butt home and work.
that was about it.
Okay.
I did take in some athletic events in the evening, walk to town to do that. But then when we moved to Hillsboro, downtown Hillsboro on 6th Street,
Yep.
matter of fact, I'd wanted to play football all the way along, and Dad really didn't want me to play football. He was always
Well-
afraid I'd get hurt. So before we left the farm, I had an uncle from here from Los Angeles, and he was Dad's uncle. And he said, I suppose you play football. And I said, no, Dad won't let me. And I think Uncle Art had a big conversation with Dad.
Oh boy.
When he left, his dad said to me, if you want to play football, you go ahead. So I got on my bike and went to town before he changed his mind to buy football shoes.
Wow.
So I played football my junior and senior year.
Did you really? Good for you.
My junior year I was on JV, and the senior year I was...
So if I check the yearbook from 42, 43, you'll be in there.
Matter of fact, I was told that I tied for All-Star football.
You were?
With one of the other, the three of us guards that played all the time. The other two were twins.
Ah.
And they'd been playing for 4 years, and I didn't join them when I was a junior. But I got some All-Star recognition before the season was over with it.
Good for you. So you played the lineman.
Yeah, I was a guard.
What were the twins? Do you remember the names?
Ploss. Fred and Frank Ploss.
You're kidding me. I grew up in Orenco, and Fred Ploss lived there. Plass, I think. Had to be him.
You sure it wasn't Frank?
Could have been.
I think Fred was killed in the war.
Oh, no, he had Fred Ploss was my age, so his dad was probably, they probably named him after the brother. It had to be the same family.
That could be.
Who were some of your classmates that you graduated with that were people that stood out later in life or during your high school career? Did you still have any classmates left?
I have one that I know of.
Who's that?
Eldon Snyder, and he's in a convalescent home.
Eldon Snyder, okay.
And I just lost Goddard. What's his first name?
What's his last name?
Goddard.
Goddard?
They owned a farm south of town, big farm.
Sam Goddard?
Sam Goddard.
I knew Sam Goddard out in Shoals.
Yeah. He was a...
Did he just die?
Did he what?
Has he just died? Or
within the last year, yes.
Wow. I guess he would be about your age. I knew him when I was in high school.
He was a year younger than I was, but he was in my class.
Yeah, he was a realtor like me and very well respected, very well liked man out south of town there. We used to own that. Dad bought that South store, which was on the corner 219 and 210 in 1977, and Sam Goddard lived in that brick house right along I guess that's Highway 210, the Newburgh Highway. Yeah, he was a nice man, so he was a classmate.
A great guy, yes.
Yeah.
We spent time together, more time together after school, because school...
So you did a little football in high school.
He didn't play football, but I did.
Did you chase the girls around in high school a little bit?
Did I know? I think I only had 3 dates in high school.
You know, that's not a very uncommon story. I've had a number of people that I've interviewed tell me they weren't allowed to date. Some of the gals were Catholic.
I dated, but...
You didn't have time.
First of all, I went around the country, and I didn't... Dad says his car was his car.
Yeah.
He says, you guys wreck the car and I can't get to work. I don't have money to put on the table for...
So you're not driving the car, yeah.
And so I got it to go to the prom once. I think I used it 3 times in high school.
No?
But that was all right. And
You walked everywhere, rode a bike, I suppose.
Yeah. I only had 3 dates in high school, so I wasn't know.
You weren't serious about girls. It wasn't a big deal. Well, you're a football star. I figured you might have them falling all over you.
I wasn't a star, but I enjoyed playing the game.
Did you enjoy Hillsboro High School?
Oh, yeah. Yep.
Yeah, have any teachers that you remember from that era that stood out to you?
Dave Leger, for one. Wes Foster. You ever remember? You didn't teach
Dave
that.
Leger. And what was the other guy's name?
Wes Foster.
Foster. Okay. Didn't know them, but good to hear their names because...
Principal was John Cox.
John Cox, okay.
An interesting story on John Cox. After I got home from boot camp, I went to a football game, and he was there, and he got a hold of me, and he wanted to know all about it because he was concerned that at his age he may get drafted, and whether he could take the abuse that we took in boot camp. It was kind of an interesting conversation.
He wanted to know?
Yep.
He was thinking about going in?
Well, no, I think he was concerned being drafted.
Oh, okay, I gotcha. He must not have been too old of a man then.
Oh, I don't know how old he was. I can't tell you that.
So, now that you mentioned it, you're coming out of high school, then you go straight in to the Army?
Yeah, I was out of high school for about 2 weeks, and then I was drafted. In fact, there was 7 of us out of my class drafted in
1943?
43.
So things were really heating up. We were in the war at that point, right?
Yes.
After
Yes,
Pearl
yeah.
Harbor, we were
Yeah.
all in. So,
We were latecomers coming into it.
do you remember Pearl Harbor as a high
Oh, yeah, I
schooler?
remember the day it happened. I went home and won it. I was 16 years old. I went home and told Dad, I'm gonna join the Army or Navy or something and help fight this thing. And he said, "You're not either." He says, "You're gonna finish high school before you do that." He fought in World War I. He knew what it was all about.
Yeah.
He didn't think that was a place for a 16-year-old.
A lot of guys did though, right?
They did.
They got
Some
real
of them did.
patriotic and jumped
Yep,
out.
yep.
Jumped. There's a napkin there if you need one.
I got a handkerchief here.
Well, you're 95. You seem like you have a good, clear memory.
Yeah, I've had that. Probably remember too much.
So you did have to finish. That must have been kind of unnerving watching the headlines and hearing about all the guys. And you probably had classmates that didn't come home or that came home in a box, probably.
I think we only lost one classmate.
Wow,
in that war.
that's a miracle.
It is.
So when you did graduate, though, wrapped up your business at high school, then you went straight in.
So I just
You got drafted. You would have gone in anyway.
yeah.
So where did you go? What happened?
Went to Coeur d'Alene, Idaho for boot camp.
Wow.
Went to San Diego to go to torpedo school. And then went to San Francisco at Hunters Point to work in a torpedo shop. And then after I don't know, it's a little over a year that we were going to invade Japan. So I got pulled on a ship to send to the Philippines to back up for those who got lost over there. In this
You did?
Yeah. But
So were you Navy?
yeah.
Okay, you were Navy.
So on the ship on the way over, they dropped the bomb.
Oh, wow.
And none of us on the ship ever heard about that. We thought we were just walking in to fight the Japs. But we got over there, and the war was over. And then we had to put in 7 months to have enough points to come home.
Where did you do that at? Philippines?
In the Philippines, on the island of Samar. It was basically a Navy base.
Fighting was all done by the time
Fighting
you got
was
there.
done, yep. The Japs surrendered shortly after that.
Right, I remember that.
And they had
Very.
MacArthur came over and set peace treaty signed, and
Really emotional time, wasn't
it
it?
was.
How'd that feel to hear that it was over?
But we were glad to hear that.
Yeah.
If they had, what the hell do they do with us now?
Yeah,
They don't really need us.
yeah.
But here we are over there, so
Yeah.
we found all kinds of things to do.
They kept you busy.
I ended up managing the grease rack that greased all the trucks and equipment they had.
Yeah, they had a lot of equipment over there in the Philippines, didn't they?
They did. My first night over there, they pulled us out of the barracks and said, "Get on the bus here," and they took us out. We scraped barnacles off the ships that were out there with nothing else to do, but that's what we did.
Yeah, that's miserable work.
Well, I spent one day at that. The next night, I found a way to fall out of line and found something else to do.
So you're pretty resourceful about finding ways to do things. Maybe that was a skill that would help you later in life, I guess.
Could be, I don't know, but that's
So when did you come home? You spent 2 years in, 3 years in?
just short of 3 years.
Okay, and then you got discharged? Came home to Hillsboro?
Came home to Hillsboro,
What happened then?
and then I went to work in construction
Okay.
as a laborer building houses over at Cedar Hills. They
Who was the builder? Do you remember?
Camplin, who had his building was on Canyon Road, just as you get into Portland.
Was he building the Cedar Hills area at that
He
time?
was building in that area at that time.
Okay.
And the first I got on the framing crew, and that was miserable work. Let me tell you that.
Yeah, it's hard, yeah. I've done it.
Work. And I guess I showed in my production because the framing guy was going to can me. So he went and talked to the framing boss and told him that, and the framing boss says, "Don't can him, I want him." My dad was working at that place and got on the same crew he was. So you're handling lumber and you were laying out things. Well, I'd get the blueprint and I'd lay out the lumber and the carpenter just driving nails. Man, we were really a going machine. They didn't do what they'd most like to do, but I was taking some away from them.
Wow.
When the summer was over, I went and told him, "Well, I'm going to quit. I'm going to University to school. And the next day they came out and says, "You got any time off?" And I said, "Well, I got my schedule. I have Tuesday and Thursday from 10 o'clock the rest of the day off. You want to come in and work, help drafting with us?" So I said, "Yeah, I can do that." So
So you went to school and kept working for these guys.
and I worked there drafting, drawing, helping
Good for you.
alter plans.
A lot of good skills back then. So this was the boom, housing boom post-war. The
It
GI
was.
Bill was out. Everybody was getting a house in the suburbs, right? So you're building in Beaverton mostly when that housing boom took off.
It was Cedar Hills as we were building in that
Cedar Hills.
development there.
Gotcha.
And that's what I did the rest of that summer. And then the next summer I went the same thing. And the next summer they were building a Safeway store, and I got a job there. It wasn't from South Kaplan, it was somebody else.
Where were you going to school?
Support school, Pacific University.
You went to Pacific. Did you graduate from there?
Yes, I did.
What'd you graduate with?
Business.
So around here, that was where you kind of were expected to go, right? I mean, they were
Most of them went to Oregon State.
big school. Okay. So you got your degree in business from Pacific. You worked building houses. You were doing some drafting.
Well, then when I went on the laboring thing again, and then when we were building the Safeway store, the boss said, "Well, we need some more carpenters." And I said, "I'll be here in the morning." He says, "You belong to the union?" I said, "I will by morning." He said, "You have tools?" I said, "I will by morning." He said, "Okay." So I raised my wages from $1 an hour to $1.50 an hour. And I carpentered that summer and the next summer before.
Which Safeway store were you building?
The big Safeway store on, well, it's not there anymore. It was posted Emerald Port.
Oh, downtown Portland?
Beaverton.
Oh, Beaverton.
Beaverton.
Okay. Yeah, people forget how Safeway, when it came along, it was a real game changer. Because before that, we didn't have big grocery chains, did we?
No.
So you'd be in your 20s all during this time.
Yeah.
Early to late 20s. Did you get married?
No, well, I did eventually, but
Not then.
after I got out of college.
So now we're in the 50s, is that right?
I graduated from college, let's see, 1950, yeah.
All right,
25 years old.
I'm gonna grab a photo here because I think this is from the 50s, isn't it? This picture I got here.
Yeah, I think that's in that Pacific University, yeah.
All right, let me take
The
a
badge.
let me break away to this photograph here. If I get the focus to work on this. There you are. Yeah, I think we saw this. Well, I saw a picture that looked like this in the Argus.
There was one in there. I don't know who put it in, but somebody did.
That looks like it says Hillsboro on it.
Well, maybe that is a Hillsboro one.
So,
I
tell me about your baseball career. That's a good picture. So you would be what, in your 20s there?
Yes. Yes, I would be.
You were born in 25.
Yeah.
Is this the late 40s or the early 50s, this picture, do you think?
Yeah, I would think it would be in the 50s.
All right.
I played my first year of semi-pro ball. I played with Beaverton.
So you didn't play in high school?
Yeah, I did play in high
Oh,
school.
you did? Okay.
2 years, I think
So
I
you-
mentioned earlier. I played.
You said football, but you
No,
played
no,
baseball and
baseball. I
football.
played baseball all 4 years.
Okay.
Yeah.
What'd you play? What
I
position?
played the outfield then, and then when I was in the Navy, I played a lot of softball, and I was a catcher there. And then I came back and went to Pacific, and I was going out for a catcher, and they had a hell of a good catcher.
So you played some college baseball.
Yeah. So then I tried to, with the other catcher, he was a good friend of mine. I'd stand at third base, and he had first, and we tried to throw a ball hard enough to knock the other guy down. You know?
Yeah.
The coach was Pete Jonas, and he played pro ball. So he converted me to a pitcher, so I pitched the rest of my life.
And pretty good pitcher from what I've heard.
I did all right. I wasn't a great pitcher, but
You can get through a few innings, huh?
oh yeah.
So after you played at Pacific, because we read an article about the Townies, the Hillsboro Townies. What was the Hillsboro Townies? Tell me about that.
Well, when I got involved with it years ago, they had a hell of a soft baseball team here.
Hillsboro.
Yeah.
And
guys like Roy Helser and some
of the guys went on to
Derricks who went on to play pro ball. And
yeah.
Webb and
Yeah, I was just reading about Schulmerich, one of the Schulmerich boys, Wes, I think, went on to become maybe one of the greatest athletes in Oregon history because of what he did in the majors.
yeah.
And yeah, they talked. I have his picture, and I was reading his history. It was pretty, the Schulmerich's big family in Hillsboro. Yeah, people don't know that. So when the Hops came to town, everybody's like, "Oh, this is going to be big time," and a lot of you old timers are going, "Hey, we had that going, right?"
Yeah, we did.
So people tell me, and I kind of remember, there was a big baseball diamond right in the big turn on 10th Street and TV Highway, right near Chute Park.
Yes, that's where we played our baseball.
Was it in the curve, or did it used to be on the other side?
In the curve where the shopping center is.
Okay, and there was a stadium there. There were grandstands there. There were wooden grandstands. And I remember the lights when I was a little kid. There were light poles, so it was night games, all of that.
And those lights got put up by Herman Shane. With Perfection
Herman
Bakery.
from Perfection Bakery put the lights up.
And that was the reason they had a softball league. And
He organized softball leagues.
well, he was involved in it. As a matter of fact, I played softball for him.
So the townies would
But that
travel.
was baseball. Now we're back to softball.
So tell me a little bit more about the townies before we talk about softball. What was the townies? A semi-pro team?
The semi-pro team. When I got out of the Navy, out of college, my last year of college, I played with Banks. The year before that, they were state champions. And then the next year, I played for Beaverton. And then I was in Active Club. And I said, we need a Hillsboro baseball team. And with their support, we developed a baseball team, of which I played on. And Don Morrison, a good friend of mine, we got him to manage it. And
Who sponsored the team?
Active Club did. We went out and got money and sponsored it.
The Rotary or the Active?
Active Club. You don't know about Active Club. It's a young man's service club.
Active, ACTIVE.
That competed with the JCs.
Yeah. I remember the Active 2030 Club.
Yeah, that's it.
That's them. Didn't they merge with the JCs eventually?
No.
Okay.
No, we fought one another
For support.
So
the Active 2030 Club was, so I know who they are. They used to sponsor the fair and other things here in Hillsboro.
Different things, yeah.
Younger people.
Yep.
So the townies would travel, and who all did you play? Banks? Beaverton?
Beaverton, Tillamook, Astoria.
Portland?
No, we didn't play by Portland.
So it was kind of a West Side league?
Sherwood. Yeah, it was just.
Sherwood?
Yeah. It was,
So could guys play in that league and then have a chance to move up a level if they were good enough?
we did have one or two that moved up. Bob Morrison being one of them.
And they'd move up to what?
He went up to.
Was it
Portland,
3?
He went up with the Portland Beavers.
Okay, so the next level above that was the Beavers, and above that was the majors.
Then there's all kinds of classifications to get there.
Yeah, so it's kind of like a farm league, basically, is what they called that. So Hillsboro had a pretty good run from what I can see. The townies were pretty decent.
We were respectable.
Yeah.
We didn't win any state championships, but we played in those tournaments.
How many years did you play for the townies?
Well, the second year, Don Morrison moved to San Diego, and so I became the manager, and I managed it for, I suppose, 5, 6, 7 years. I don't remember.
You were the coach and player manager.